But before I do that, I want to give your readers and viewers some context, because often you see maps of Israel, you think it's a Goliath. Well, I'd like to give you first an overview of where Israel is. This is the Middle East, and this is the entire Arab world.
Okay, I'm just going to say that this thing that he's doing right now is one of the most important things. And I am so happy that the prime minister took the time to lay this out. It's so important. This map that he's showing should be shown at every discussion about Israel, every time. Not talk about our democracy, not talk about our morality, but talk about our tininess within the broader Arab region. This is the truth. This is what we're living in. We're living in a tiny Jewish state defending itself as a minority from a majority. Now, not everybody is hostile, not everybody's jihadist, but a lot are. And so this is such an important lesson. And I'm so glad that the prime minister took the time to explain this. And we should be always using this. This is absolutely a key analysis and understanding. If you have it the other way, that you believe that Israel is this giant country and the Palestinians are these little tiny victims, well, you've fallen prey to the propaganda, the anti-Israel propaganda. This little map, this big map with the little Israel inside, is the truth and the reality that we face out here. We are basically a nation state defending itself, our minority, from a majority in this region. And the only way to do it is to stay strong and to hold on to your borders and not to succumb and to shrink. Because if you shrink, the jihad is like, we're going to swallow you up in toto. So here's the prime minister giving such an important contextualizing of the reality of Israel.
And this is Israel. It's one of the world's tiniest countries. I give it the thumb test. This is a big one, so you need a bigger thumb. But it's a tiny country. It's one of the tiniest countries on the planet. It's, I think, 0.1% of the territory of the Arab world. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's 0.2%. It goes from the river is right here, that's the Jordan River, to the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. So when Hamas is talking about liberating Palestine from the river to the sea, basically what they're saying is destroy Israel. And the entire width of this is probably around the width of the Washington Beltway. It's all together at its widest point, about 50 miles, right here. Tiny. And here's Gaza there. This is the red thing that you see here. That's Gaza. Now I want to zoom in. When I zoom in, remember how tiny this is. Remember the distances here. Now take a look. Here it is enlarged. This is Israel. This is the Mediterranean Sea. The Jordan River is right here. This is Egypt and the Sinai Desert. Now look at Gaza. Where is Gaza? Gaza is implanted in this tiny country, 30 miles from Tel Aviv, 40 miles from our capital, Jerusalem, 30 miles from Beersheba. These are three of Israel's largest cities. Gaza is within spitting distance to them.
Notice, by the way, how this Gaza is sitting as such a tiny little island within Israel, and how it is so aesthetically obvious, so kind of physically and aesthetically obvious, that you can't have a different country in the middle of your country, right? You got to govern that piece of land. You can't have the bad guys govern it, because it's within your land. And if you give it over and you let them build up a jihadism in there, look at those arrows. Look where it leads us. It leads us to be constantly endangered. So, it's got to kind of come to you, like, even I call it even on an aesthetic level, which is like, do you really think that Israel should have this like missing tooth? Like, look at the border, and then suddenly there's like this part that's cut out, and your haters are living there? That's not going to work.
Israel, up to the disengagement agreement of 2005, Israel controlled this border under an agreement with Egypt after the Camp David peace accords. We controlled this part, which is called the Philadelphia corridor. I'll talk about that in a minute. Right down to Eilat in the Red Sea. This was our border. And while there was I would say, a minimal amount of terrorism. We didn't really face a big problem. Let's zoom in on that a bit more. Here's Gaza Strip enlarged. Again, this is the situation in Gaza before the disengagement of 2005. And the Gaza Strip is firmly under Israeli control. We control the maritime border. You can't smuggle in weapons. They tried, but we stopped it. You control the land border. And you control this border between the Sinai Desert, Egypt, and Gaza, the Gaza Strip. It's controlled. This is the Philadelphia corridor. This is the Rafah crossing, controlled by the IDF. Now look at the distances from Gaza. It's 4 miles to another city in Israel called Ashkelon, where I visited that bereaved family yesterday. It's a population of 170,000 people. They're 4 miles away. But some of our communities, like Kibbutz Be'eri, which was one of the hardest hit, is 1 mile away from Gaza. Kfar Aza is less than 1 mile away. It's literally walking distance, okay? And so as long as we control this, these communities, sometimes they were harassed by this rocket or that rocket, but it was marginal. We control the security situation. But something happened in 2005. Israel unilaterally disengaged from Gaza. It just went out. It took out everything. It took out the army. It stripped, uprooted communities, took out 10,000 people. The army left the Philadelphia corridor. Here's what happened.
So the only question is and Prime Minister Netanyahu is not going to touch it, which is, why did it do that? And why did he himself vote for the disengagement? I think what he's saying is, which is just so obvious to me, which is that was really dumb. Don't give away security control to the jihad. Don't kick your people out of Gaza. That's ancestral land and important security land. And don't do that, because if you do that and you take away the idea from the Philadelphia corridor, then they're going to smuggle in arms. We'll hear more about that. But the kind of missing verbiage here is like, yeah, and that was dumb. We should have not done that. We should have not left Gaza. We've done that, and we did that 17 years ago, 18 years ago now, and it's been an utter disaster, not what we thought was going to happen. But I think he's going to explain it even a little bit more. But just keep that in mind, which is like, yeah, we got to roll back that mistaken policy.
This is Gaza after the disengagement. And Hamas now has a weapon smuggling operation nurtured by Iran, financed by Iran, supplied by Iran, delivered by Iran. And here's what happened. That Philadelphia corridor became completely porous. The other borders controlled by us. But once this was perforated, even though the policy of Egypt was to prevent it, it didn't necessarily work. It didn't succeed. And this border, once we left our side of the Philadelphia corridor, rockets went in, missiles went in, drones went in, ammo went in, weapons manufacturing equipment came in, tunnel drilling equipment came in. Once we got out, once we left the Philadelphia corridor, Iran could carry out its plan to turn Gaza into a base, a terrorist enclave that would endanger not only the communities around it, but would endanger Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Beersheba, the entire country of Israel. It became a huge terrorist base because we left that corridor. So we vowed, or I would say all this, you have to understand that the centrality of the Philadelphia corridor to the arming of Gaza, to the arming of Hamas, and this all led to the October 7th massacre, which Hamas has proudly vowed, to do again and again and again. We vowed that they won't be able to do it. So we set, as far as Gaza is concerned, 3 war goals. The first war goal was to destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities. The second was to free our hostages. And the third was to ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. And all...
I'm not exactly sure what the difference between number one and number three is you're saying you want to get rid of Hamas, okay, and then you want to make sure that Gaza doesn't pose a threat anymore. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that you never? What is the separation here that Netanyahu says destroy Gaza? Excuse me, destroy Hamas, and also number three, never allow any force like Hamas to take over. Is that the meaning of what he's saying? I hope that's what it means. I'm not sure that's what it means, but I think that's what he's saying. That we are never again going to allow a force like that. If it's the PA or Al Qaeda or who knows what else, we're not going to let them take over. And then nestled in there is the issue of the hostages. To me, the hostages are not on the same level because the hostages may very well be dead. And also, if you're fighting as though you're trying to rescue hostages, you may not fight with all of your gusto because you may be trying too hard to make sure that they don't get hurt. So, and you may be making deals with the devil. So that part is problematic. But 1 and 2, I can definitely understand. 1 and 3, I can understand. Number 2, I'm not sure that rescuing the hostages is commensurate with those other goals. I think you have to say, 1, we're going to destroy Hamas. 2, we're never going to allow any force to take over. 3, we're going to govern this land because that's the only way to do it. And 4, we're going to resettle it. The hostages, to put them as number 2, I'm not sure that that's a good fighting technique.